Welcome back to True Crime Files. If you're passionate about unraveling mysterious and gripping true crime stories, you're in the right place. Today we dive into a chilling tale of loyalty, deception, and the ultimate unraveling of a carefully constructed lie. But before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get into today's story. In the quiet, picturesque town of Pine Hill, the murder of Jennifer Johnson shocked the community. What seemed to be a peaceful suburban enclave was shattered by a crime of passion and betrayal, revealing dark secrets among seemingly idyllic lives. Two couples, Daniel and Linda Garner, and Mark and Jennifer Johnson, were entangled in a web of obsession, deceit, and ultimately murder. Daniel Garner, a respected architect with a charming demeanor, appeared to have a perfect marriage with Linda, a dedicated schoolteacher. Mark Johnson, a successful financial advisor, and his wife Jennifer were the Garners' closest friends. The two couples shared more than neighborhood barbecues and weekend getaways. They engaged in a consensual wife-swapping arrangement, which initially brought excitement to their lives. However, beneath this unconventional lifestyle, dangerous emotions were brewing. Daniel's fascination with Jennifer grew into an all-consuming obsession, which Linda, his wife, painfully noticed. Jennifer, sensing Daniel's intensity, decided to end the arrangement, unaware of the deadly consequences her decision would provoke. Daniel and Linda Garner had been married for 10 years. From the outside, their marriage appeared stable and happy. Daniel was known for his innovative designs and charismatic personality, while Linda was beloved by her students and respected by colleagues. They lived in a charming house on Maple Street, surrounded by a well-tended garden that Linda cherished. Mark and Jennifer Johnson moved to Pine Hill 5 years ago and quickly became friends with the Garners. Mark was outgoing and affable, always the life of the party, while Jennifer that left them eager for more. What started as an occasional experiment soon became a regular part of their lives, adding a spark to both marriages. Initially, the arrangement seemed to work well, with both couples appearing happier and more connected. They maintained their social activities, often hosting joint parties and going on vacations together, carefully guarding their secrets. However, subtle changes began to surface, particularly in Daniel's behavior. He started showing an unusual amount of interest in Jennifer, often finding reasons to spend time alone with her. Linda noticed his increasing preoccupation, but chose to ignore it, hoping it was just a phase. Mark, too, seemed oblivious to the growing tension. Unbeknownst to the others, Daniel's fascination with Jennifer was turning into something deeper and more troubling. He found himself thinking about her constantly, replaying their encounters in his mind and craving more time with her. What had started as a harmless adventure was slowly morphing into an obsession with devastating consequences for all involved. Daniel's obsession with Jennifer was no longer just a thrill. He thought about her incessantly, his mind wandering to their encounters during work meetings and family dinners. His architectural projects, once his passion, now seemed secondary to his desire for Jennifer. He started finding ways to be near her, volunteering to help with tasks Mark usually handled, or inviting the Johnsons over more frequently. Linda began to notice the change in her husband. At first, she attributed it to the excitement of their new lifestyle, but soon it became clear that Daniel's interest in Jennifer went beyond their agreement. He became irritable and distant when they weren't with the Johnsons, and his conversations often veered toward Jennifer's likes and dislikes, her quirks and habits. One evening, while cleaning up after a dinner party, Linda confronted Daniel. His reaction was defensive, dismissing her concerns as jealousy. Linda, not wanting to disrupt the delicate balance they had established, let it go, but kept a closer eye on him. Her suspicions grew when she found him staring at Jennifer during gatherings, his gaze lingering longer than necessary. Jennifer, too, began to sense Daniel's growing obsession. Initially flattered by his attention, she soon found it uncomfortable. His touches became more possessive, his words more intimate than appropriate. She discussed her discomfort with Mark, who brushed it off, believing Daniel was just more expressive in his affections. Mark's nonchalance left Jennifer feeling isolated in her concerns. The turning point came during a weekend trip to a lakeside cabin. The couples had planned the getaway to reconnect and enjoy some time away from their routine. However, the trip only served to highlight Daniel's fixation. He monopolized Jennifer's time, insisting on taking her out on the lake alone, leaving Mark and Linda behind. The tension was palpable, and Jennifer's attempts to distance herself were met with subtle resistance from Daniel. One night, while sitting by the fire, Daniel made a comment that crossed the line. He spoke about leaving everything behind and starting fresh, just the two of them. Jennifer, shocked and unsettled, excused herself and went to bed early. Linda, who had overheard the conversation, confronted Daniel again. This time, he was less dismissive, but still refused to acknowledge the depth of his feelings. Linda's frustration grew as she realized the extent of Daniel's obsession. She loved her husband, but was increasingly aware that his infatuation with Jennifer could destroy their marriage and their friendship with the Johnsons. Despite her efforts to intervene, Daniel's behavior became more erratic. He started to follow Jennifer outside of their arranged meetings, showing up at her yoga classes and even appearing at her workplace under the guise of casual visits. Jennifer's unease turned to fear. She confided in a close friend who advised her to distance herself from Daniel as much as possible. Determined to take control, Jennifer decided to end the arrangement altogether. She hoped that by doing so, Daniel would return to his senses, and they could all move on from this chapter without causing further harm. One evening, while Mark was away on a business trip, Daniel showed up at the Johnsons' house unannounced. Jennifer, taken aback, let him in, hoping to avoid a scene. They sat in the living room, the air thick with unspoken tension. Daniel confessed his feelings for her, speaking of a future where they could be together openly. Jennifer, horrified, tried to reason with him, explaining that their arrangement was never meant to be more than a temporary excitement. As Daniel's declarations became more intense, Jennifer's fear turned to anger. She realized she needed to put an end to this before it destroyed her marriage and her friendship with Linda. She told Daniel firmly that their arrangement was over and that he needed to respect her boundaries and her marriage. Daniel, visibly shaken, tried to persuade her to reconsider, but Jennifer stood her ground. Over the next few days, Jennifer avoided Daniel, hoping he would come to his senses. She confided in Linda, who listened with a heavy heart. Linda knew her husband's obsession had gone too far, and while she wanted to support Jennifer, she also felt a twisted loyalty to Daniel. She promised Jennifer she would talk to him, hoping to defuse the situation. However, Daniel's obsession only deepened. He started showing up at Jennifer's work, waiting for her after hours, and leaving her messages expressing his undying love. Jennifer, feeling increasingly unsafe, decided to confront him one last time, hoping to make him understand the gravity of his actions. They met at a secluded park, away from prying eyes. Jennifer reiterated that their arrangement was over and that his behavior was unacceptable. She pleaded with him to let go and move on. Daniel, unable to accept her rejection, grew desperate. He accused her of leading him on and playing with his emotions. Jennifer, maintaining her composure, insisted that they part ways and return to their respective marriages. Unbeknownst to them, Linda had followed Daniel to the park. She watched from a distance, her heart pounding as she saw the confrontation unfold. She could see the anguish on Daniel's face and the determination on Jennifer's. Linda knew that this confrontation was inevitable, but she also feared what might happen next. As the argument escalated, Daniel's desperation turned to anger. Jennifer's refusal to entertain his fantasies felt like a personal betrayal. He lashed out verbally, calling her names and accusing her of ruining his life. Jennifer, holding back tears, stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. Linda, watching from the shadows, felt a surge of panic. She knew she had to intervene before things got out of hand. She stepped out of her life in prison without the possibility of parole, while Linda received a 20-year sentence with the chance for parole after 15 years. The Garners' story served as a grim reminder of how obsession and deceit could lead to unimaginable tragedy. As Pine Hill returned to its quiet routine, the community was left to grapple with the aftermath of the events that had unfolded. Jennifer's death had shaken the town to its core, leaving a void that could never truly be filled. Mark, devastated by the loss of his wife, struggled to find a way forward, surrounded by the support of friends and neighbors who shared in his grief. Detective Mitchell, though satisfied with the resolution of the case, couldn't help but reflect on the complexity of human emotions and the dark paths they could lead to. The Garner case would remain with her, a constant reminder of the fragile balance between love, obsession, and the desperate measures people could take to protect their secrets. In the end, the story of Daniel and Linda Garner, Jennifer Johnson, and the tragic events that ensued became a cautionary tale in Pine Hill, a tale of love turned to obsession, trust shattered by deceit, and lives forever altered by a moment of uncontrolled rage.